The Harvard president, which I was surprised. I was surprised. Did you know that over at MIT and Harvard, that the president of Harvard was, first of all, that it was a black woman. That it was a black woman. That's A. And then B, on top of that, Azriel says, when did the Pistons last win a championship? 2004, ma'am. We've won championships since Houston got their fake championship from Jordan, but we're not going to go there. We won them before y'all, and then we won them after y'all. So shout out to Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, Lindsey Hunter, Mike James. Shout out to all of the 2000 Mamedo Core. Shout out to the 2004 Pistons for beating Shaq and Kobe, the Los Angeles. Both of y'all legends that y'all think is the greatest, we beat them both. We beat Shaq and Kobe. We beat Jordan and Pippen. We beat Magic and Bird. We beat Kareem. We beat them all. All of your legends that y'all think is supposed to be at the top of the food chain, the Pistons beat them. So we not even going to talk about it right now. As far as sports is concerned, Houston, I'm going to need you to take a back seat right now. Now, we're going to talk about this black woman over at Harvard that they're calling for her job. Okay? Okay, Pumpkin? Make sure I hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.
Tonight, the pressure is growing on the presidents of the elite universities of Harvard and MIT to resign. This weekend, the president of the University of Pennsylvania, Liz McGill, stepping down after critics blasted her testimony before Congress about anti-Semitism on campus. Harvard's president, Claudine also being criticized for this response.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
Does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign.
That Congresswoman, Republican Elise Stefanik, tweeted after the resignation at UPenn, 1 down, 2 to go, referencing the leaders at Harvard and MIT. Harvard's president did later apologize, writing in part on X, "Let me be clear, calls for violence or genocide against the Jewish community or any religious or ethnic group are vile. They have no place at Harvard, and those who threaten our Jewish students will be held to account." But that hasn't quieted her critics, including the billionaire alumnus Bill Ackman, who is actively pushing for her resignation. Jonathan Greenblatt is CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. Is ADL calling for these leaders to resign?
I think ADL is saying we want action. And if the presidents prepare clear and well-developed plans to their boards, demonstrate how they are prepared to take real, immediate steps, I think that might allay many of the concerns.
So they're basically saying that because we interpreted what you said at a hearing, even though she never said, now listen, I have to be fair. I have to be absolutely fair. I'm not for women necessarily in every leadership position. However, obviously, her as a Harvard president is more than capable of being able to handle herself appropriately and manage an entire school, one of our historic universities in the United States of America. She never, ever said, and just because you got sassy with her and just because you said a whole bunch of stuff to her does not mean that she ever supported or said in any way, shape, or form, even though you tried to trap her, she was smart enough in order to be able to compose herself and maintain her femininity or masculinity, however you want to frame it. They never asked her for the context. And this is one of the reasons why I can't stand politicians. I think of all of the people on the face of this earth outside of criminals that destroy your community, I can't stand politicians that push an agenda in order to create visibility for themselves at the expense of hopefully getting you fired from your job. But let's continue.
Universities across the country have faced mounting criticism over their response to the war. Some Jewish and Muslim students say too little is being done to protect them.
It's important for people to understand that we're all in it together and everyone is hurt and everyone feels, quite disturbed by, this situation.
What situation? honestly, and I'm open to learning and having a better understanding. I'm very much following what is happening with the Israel war and everything like that. But I'm trying to understand what violence and what has anybody said over here in the United States of America? Because let's be clear, we're allocating a ton of military resources and monies in order to support this against the wishes of the majority of the residents and the constituents that voted in our presidents, Congress members, and lawmakers. So even though we're against spending money supporting what it is that you say you need to be protected from, I have heard nobody, zero. And when I mean zero, I am very much in the mire and trying to understand what is happening within our culture. I have heard zero people, and when I say zero, I mean zero, anybody say anything that would warrant you needing extra provisions and protections or for somebody to be brought to the front of the congregation. I have no reason, I have no understanding as to why they even asked her this question in the first place.
Dana Griffin, NBC News.
Let me play a different view of it, and hopefully we can get some. Because Cuomo said that she needs to be fired.
Professor does not agree with my assessment, but I will try it again now with Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law professor emeritus. And look, of course, this is almost a moot point that there should be autonomy on university campuses, and they shouldn't just bow to political pressure. The problem is that's exactly how this all started. Professors, that they decided to play politics on campus about what they like to hear and what they don't like to hear. And it's just that anti-Semitism didn't seem to get the same veil of protection that LGBTQAI plus or race does.
Well, first of all, the professor said that we should respond to these things not by pressure, but by, her words were, evidence and rational analysis. The letter didn't contain one word of evidence or rational analysis. There have been hundreds of pages of criticism directed not only at President Gay's statement, but about Harvard's entire policy of having emphasis on race. And this letter doesn't say a word. It doesn't try to answer. It doesn't try to debate. It just said, don't listen to a word that Rich.
Kenya's from Cali says, let me read Kenya from Cali because I love to interact with the chat while they're calling for this woman's job. I'm amazed. Kenya from Cali says, you maybe should have looked up incidents on campus before doing this segment, fam, humbly and respectfully. Okay, well, humbly and respectfully, whatever incidents that's happening on campus has nothing to do with leadership response. And what we're talking about here, as you can see from the actual title at the bottom, is that the Harvard president is under fire and they're calling for her job because of something that they tried to bait her into a conversation about, but did not add for or ask for any context or even try to get any understanding as to how they were communicating. Obviously, and I have done my research, but again, I want to stay on point and I don't want to get derailed from what we're talking about. Has nothing to do with whatever incidents happen on campus. Has everything to do with what's being communicated from the president. There's no way that you can just call for somebody's job based off of what you interpret how they feel about a specific political issue or something that's happening abroad. What does this have to do with the price of potatoes in China? If you want to have a segment specifically on what's happening at Ivy League campuses, then that is a completely different conversation from calling for somebody else's job and forcing them to apologize for something that they did not do. What we see happening right here, and one of the reasons why we have to be very, very careful in calling for any action against anybody, is because you're running down a slippery slope and that you're forcing somebody to do something that you want to do when they never did anything that warranted for you to call for them to do it in the first place. It makes no sense at all. at all. And listen, I'm an equal accountability smoke giver, which means that I got the same energy for men as I do for women, for black people, for white people, and so on and so forth. But you cannot just call for somebody's job and then be wanting them to get fired when it has nothing to do with anything, first of all. Secondly, they did not communicate wrong as far as what it is that they stood for or misrepresenting how it is that they're supposed to be representing the university itself. And then their job that they're doing at the university is obviously stellar, and she's more than qualified to be able to do it. And that has nothing to do. And let's be clear, Kenya from Cali, you had a respectful comment, and I am not going off on you. I'm just giving my opinion, and I'm just very passionate about calling for people's jobs. So if you guys have disagreements inside of the chat, don't come at her because she has an opinion. Debate what she's saying. Don't go at her as a person. I'm speaking to the specific comment. The comment was what was going on campus with regard to leadership at MIT and Harvard. As far as what it is that I've been able to research, she has done nothing that, in my opinion, would call for her to lose her job. That's all I'm saying. You can't just start taking people's jobs that they are more than qualified for when they did not misrepresent Harvard or whatever institution that they are the president or the leader of.
Alumni or the government say, no, listen to what they say. They're part of the university structure. Alumni are part of the university structure. And it's worth listening to what they have to say. And the reason that President Gay should be forced to resign is because she's not telling us the truth about Harvard. She says, and here are her quote, "We embrace a commitment to free expression." No, President Gay has never made a commitment to free expression. It's been the opposite. She's been part of cancel culture. She's been part of censorship. She's been part of the DEI bureaucracy. She discovered free speech on August 7th. The only time in her career she has ever talked about free speech is when the free speech was to engage in genocide against the Jews. You know, it's interesting. The president of the University of Pennsylvania, who probably shouldn't have been fired because she has a long history of commitment to free speech. And what she said on that day, although it was insensitive, was consistent with her long policies. But President Gay has a dismal history on due process. She ended up firing, when she was the dean of the college, a dean of one of the houses because he represented Harvey Weinstein. And she said he had to play a pastoral role. And the pastoral role means you have to make sure your students feel safe. Right. By that standard, she should be fired. She did not make the Jewish students feel safe.
So we're trying to fire people based off of how they feel. And see, this is what I do not like. And again, I have not done a deep dive into every single stance that she's taken on history as far as what's going on campus and everything like that. We standing on business when it comes to this specific issue. Nobody called for her to be canceled or to be removed or fired. When you had any other issue, don't come to me now talking about you want to dig up everything that you disagreed with in my past in order to try to substantiate whether or not you feel a certain type of way. What are you talking about? Making you feel safe. What do you mean? What is this feeling thing? I don't understand. So if I come to you and I say, I don't feel like working today, should you be able to? No. I'm not calling for her to be removed based off of a political witch hunt. And again, I'm not a person that even stands for apparently whatever it is that she represents. But let's be very, very clear. One of the beauties of living in this country is having a difference of opinion and being able to stand on that. And it not affecting what it is that you do for a living, for how it is that you actually execute on your job. I don't believe in that. She has not been caught up in any wrongdoings. She hasn't been exposed for being a scumbag. She ain't got no kids under her house or nothing like that. Come on, man. We're not doing it. Because and one of the reasons why I want to be very, very clear on where I stand on this is because you got to remember how it affects you. If you don't want for people to look at you and leverage how they feel about you in a way in which it prevents you from being able to earn from your family, then you cannot do that to other people. You can't do that to other people. Just because somebody else has a difference of opinion from you, which they didn't even substantiate that she stands on anything different or that she's actually supporting or against anything. They didn't even ask her for the context. Just because somebody got a difference of opinion than you, don't mean that you could just call for somebody else's job. That's crazy. You can't just call for somebody else's job just because you don't like them. You can't do that. Regardless of whether or not I agree with her or I disagree with her, if you don't have any, you know what? You know why I'm so passionate about this? Is because I've seen plenty of men lose their jobs because of how somebody else felt about them, because of how they felt they made them feel based off of accusations. Too many men. And we have to set a standard that has to be a baseline, regardless of what your sexuality is or whatever. I may not agree with what you do behind closed doors, but I ain't never heard her say what she do behind closed doors. So what that got to do with me? I'm interested in trying to figure out whether or not you can run this institution effectively. Come on, man. We got to get out of your feelings. But this is where the Harvard board and all of the faculty and staff stands on this problem.
New in the last half hour, we got some news for you. The board of Harvard Corporation, which of course oversees Harvard University, saying it is standing by the embattled President Claudine Gay. That news just crossing the wires. A statement saying, quote, our extensive deliberations affirm our confidence President Gay is the right leader to help our community heal and to address very serious societal issues we are facing. The statement saying the corporation's decision was unanimous.
So the board at Harvard unanimously supported and stands by President Claudine Gay, and that they obviously feel as though she's doing a good job, and they don't believe that she said anything wrong. And y'all got to remember, they chopped that up, and she never said anything and took a position in a negative way about the issue that's going on between Israel. What they did was they asked her a question, and she spotted it. They asked her a question and she spotted the finesse. And so instead of her just saying yes or no, she refused to answer it in a way that they wanted her to because she wanted to give additional context while also being honest in her position and her stance on it. And so they took that soundbite, and you had this Republican lady that came up and tried to make a name off of her, but she was smart enough to be able to spot the finesse. And so she basically inserted the fact that she had additional context, and they never asked her about the context. They just wanted to push an agenda. I'm personally, based off of what it is that I've seen, I don't think that she should lose her job. I'm not an advocate. I think we got to be very, very careful before we start to talk about taking other people's income. We have to be very, very careful when we start to call for and talk about taking somebody's income. Very, very, very careful. You cannot just jump to conclusions because you have to put yourself in the same shoes of the people that you advocate. It's so easy for us to just say, oh, cancel them, take their income, don't allow for them to be able to work again, ruin their reputation. We can't do that. You can't do that. That is a slippery slope until it starts to apply to you. And then you want justice. Got to be careful. Got to be careful. Anyways, Harvard stood on business, and they going from there.